Strategy page, 7th of January 2024, Pakistan India, Debts and Rebellions in Pakistan India. As part of the Great Game and at the British government's insistence, Indian patriot Muhammad Ali Jinnah established Pakistan as a buffer state between India and Afghanistan because the British feared losing the crown jewel, India. In 2023, around 1,000 people were killed in Pakistan by Islamic militants and different rebel factions. Bystanders who were not members of the security forces made up the remaining victims. Following the national elections in February 2024, Pakistan's customary political mayhem is anticipated to subside considerably. The army attacked former Prime Minister Imran Khan to thwart Khan's plans to curtail army power in the democratic process. In August, Kahn was found guilty of financial misconduct and imprisoned for 3 years. He was also banned from politics for 5 years. Kahn anticipates that his supporters will perform well in the elections and accumulate enough parliamentary power to secure Khan's pardon. Kahn was transported to a prison close to the capital to serve his term. Khan's many supporters are potentially successful in their appeal to the High Court against his sentencing. Kahn intended to make a return to politics in the autumn elections. The armed forces were his biggest challenge. When he was prime minister, the military resisted Khan's attempts to curtail its political and economic clout. Through corruption, the generals had amassed wealth and independence from civilian rule and had no intention of letting that change. Gradually, the army exerted enough influence over political parties to depose Khan as prime minister, PM, in April 2022. A parliamentary majority's vote of no confidence in Khan resulted in his resignation as prime minister. The first PM to be dismissed in this manner was him. The President of Pakistan removes most PMs through another, less formal process known as a no-confidence vote. Since Pakistan's establishment in 1947, no prime minister has served a 5-year term. Economic factors, such as rising unemployment and inflation, increased Islamic terrorist activity, and a few diplomatic mishaps, were the primary causes of Khan's political supporters' defection. Khan's attempts to place civilian authority over the Pakistani military was another factor. Although there was widespread public support for limiting military power, the military resisted and succeeded in getting Khan imprisoned on corruption-related charges. If not permanently, this will prevent Khan from running in the January elections and recovering his political influence. Compared to Pakistan, India has a more stable government and, when population density is taken into consideration, fewer terrorist attacks. India has never had an issue with the military meddling in politics since the armed forces have always been subservient to the elected administration. The Communist Party of India, or CPI, is charged with attempting to resurrect its violent radical faction, the recently decimated Maoist communist rebels, in eastern India. The CPI is legally recognized in India, and its leaders have collaborated with Indian efforts to prevent the Maoists from regaining their power and capacity for violence. They also disapprove of the brutality committed by the Maoists. There were fewer fatalities linked to Maoist activity in 2022 and 2023. Though dispersed throughout less territory, Maoist groups can still be located in eastern India. The number of terrorist-related deaths has been decreasing annually for the past 10 years. There were 414 terrorist-related deaths in 2022, and as of now, in 2023, fewer than 400 have occurred. The Communist Maoist rebels of India were previously regarded as one of the world's most dangerous terrorist organizations. The number of Maoist deaths in 2023 was less than in 2022, 98. In 2021, there were 147 such deaths. Islamic terrorists in Kashmir, India's northwest, and tribal insurgents in the northeast are two other groups that have died in India as a result of terrorism. The Maoists are found in eastern India, and over the past 10 years, vigorous government efforts to eradicate them have resulted in a significant reduction in the Maoist areas of activity. Less than 400 people died in India in 2023 as a result of terrorism overall, down from 434 in 2022, 585 in 2021. 621 in 2019 and 940 in 2018. Kashmir accounted for 54% of all deaths in 2020, which was higher than typical. In 2020, Marxist, Maoist, rebels in eastern India contributed to just 41% of the casualties, with tribal separatists in the northeast accounting for the remaining 5%. Typically, non-Islamic terrorist violence accounts for the majority of violence. The reduction in Maoist activity started in 2009 when India sent an extra 75,000 police officers to combat the Maoists. At first, This did not result in more Maoist casualties, but it did cause more police deaths. In general, the Maoists were compelled to spend more time on security and less time criticizing the government or demanding money from enterprises, and they did lose several of their rural camps. The administration had, as usual, fallen short in tackling the social and economic issues in the rural, where corruption and feudalism are pervasive. The Maoists benefited from these issues in that many communities supported them, and they recruited new members. The Maoists were forced to relinquish their operating territories when the government eventually addressed the local social and economic issues. The Maoists are currently only operating in a tiny area of eastern India, where their survival is more important than their desire to grow or attack the police as a result of the ongoing police efforts. In Maoist-infested areas, civilians are less reluctant to join pro-government militias to oppose Maoist operations or to provide authorities with intelligence about Maoist activity. Additionally, it got simpler to enlist Maoists as active informants. These spies receive a monthly salary, and Maoist leaders are frequently made aware of the existence of police informants due to the sudden prosperity of their families. The damages incurred because police have inside information are often evident, even though specifics regarding informants are kept confidential. Leftist leaders have become disheartened by the Maoist downfall, as they have been unable to devise a strategy to stop or reverse the losses. A radical branch of the once dominant Indian Communist Party is known as the Maoists. The collapse of all those East European communist nations, including Russia, between 1989 and 1991 was a mystery to many Indian communists. Even still, a large portion of Indians continue to favor communism, just not the violent, ineffectual, and progressively unpopular Maoists. Pakistan's costly failure to privatize state-owned businesses in 2023 is one of the leading causes of the country's dire economic conditions. One notable instance was the expensive collapse of Pakistan steel mills. The government paid $18 billion for this. This is just one example of numerous instances where state-owned businesses could not compete, and the losses accumulated to the point that they played a significant role in the current financial crisis. India's economy is more robust and profitable since fewer state-owned businesses exist. Like Pakistan, India does not have issues with military intervention in the economy. The army generals recognized or created possibilities to take charge of numerous businesses. The generals made money off of that, but the economy suffered greatly. Pakistan's economy and army have now discovered that the country is losing money to foreign lenders. China gave Pakistan some financial relief earlier in 2023 by postponing the repayment of $2.1 billion in loans for 2 years. Payments of interest were suspended as part of this. Pakistan is China's top export destination for weaponry and the country to which billions of Chinese construction dollars are directed. Foreign investors and lenders have become wary of Pakistan and are unwilling to accept any further financial risks there, particularly the IMF, International Monetary Fund, China, and Saudi Arabia. One financial concern is the $77 billion debt owed to Saudi Arabia and China. Repayment of this loan is anticipated to occur between 2023 and 2026. Pakistan is attempting to negotiate an extension since it lacks the funds to make the payments. There won't be any further loans or investments from Saudi Arabia or China until this problem is fixed. All Pakistanis are affected by the high 47% inflation rate, resulting from all this financial instability. The Pakistani military and the Chinese debt trap produced by the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, are the leading causes of this financial hardship. They are currently in control of the Pakistani government. Since Pakistan's creation following World War II, there has been a problem with the military's undue influence on the country's politics. China and India, for various reasons, did not face that issue. From the start, Indian politicians believed that the military should continue to serve the elected government. Following World War II, Chinese communists seized power and often reminded military officers that their primary responsibility was maintaining the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, in capacity. In Pakistan, the parliament was powerless against the generals, who would take over the government for a few years before allowing the politicians to retake office. When the generals were in power, they frequently made terrible financial choices. One involved buying more weaponry from China than Pakistan could manage to pay for or afford. Pakistan is currently in a financial crisis that calls for a costly and politically challenging solution because of economic errors that have led to excessive debt that the country cannot manage. Pakistan will need to make changes and cut back on spending, particularly on the military, while the large lenders would have to absorb losses. If Pakistan's economy is not corrected, The likelihood of both civil war and mass violence is growing. 150,000 illegal Afghan migrants were driven back into Afghanistan by Pakistan in late 2023. The migrants left Afghanistan to avoid the harsh governance of the recently established Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, IEA. Pakistan did not welcome the migrants because they are an economic burden and a breeding ground for terrorism and criminal activity. Most Afghans reside in Afghan neighborhoods or camps for refugees in large cities like Karachi. Many criminal organizations have bases in Afghanistan, particularly in places like Karachi. 90 TP, Pakistani Taliban fighters assaulted the Mianwali Air Base in Punjab province at the beginning of November 2023. All of the assailants perished after being repelled. The majority of terrorist and counter-terrorism violence has occurred in southwest Pakistan, Baluchistan, and northwest Pakistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, since the middle of 2023. In 2023, more than 400 individuals lost their lives due to violence. Terrorists from Pakistan continue to cross into India's northwest, Kashmir, killing police officers, troops, and civilians. For nearly 70 years, India and Pakistan have been conflicted about who should control Kashmir. By strengthening border security to ensure that the majority of Pakistani infiltrators are either discovered and killed or forced to flee back into Pakistan, India has decreased the number of Pakistani attacks in Kashmir. Tribal violence has long existed in northeastern India, but more aggressive enforcement combined with increasing dialogue over local problems has resulted in a more than 60% reduction in violent deaths. Both China and India have agreed to withdraw their soldiers from the disputed Ladakh border region.